Hi there, my name is Karen Reynolds and I am an acupuncturist and registered nurse in Northern California. I have a specialty which is called microneedling, which is fabulous for hair loss. The reason that I'm here today is I want to introduce you to Martine Langsam, who is a certified trichologist. And I bet you don't know what a certified trichologist is. And we all who have hair problems need a certified trichologist, which is why I'm here to interview Martine. So Martine, what is trichology and how come I've never heard of it before?
Karen, trichology is the study of and the science of the hair and the scalp and its disorders. So hair loss, scalp problems, psoriasis, alopecia, that's where a trichologist studies and deals with. You haven't heard of it because it's only recent with the advent of the internet that people have started to find out about it.
Ah, okay. And so if a person has a formal diagnosis from their medical doctor, why do you think it's still valuable to obtain the trichology assessment? What does that give to the person, or what better information will they find doing that?
A certified trichologist works holistically. They look at all the underlying causes of what's going on with the hair loss or the scalp problem. Doctors don't generally give enough time to explain things well to the client or patient. And a trichologist will do a thorough examination using a microscope and trichoscope to be able to see all the different symptoms and signs of what's happening and the possible treatments out there for them.
Nice, nice. Okay. So you mentioned your specialized microscope, and I know you have a lot of tools that you use to assess the scalp and hair. Can you tell us about them? Because it seems much different than having lab work drawn or having somebody just poke around in your scalp for 5 minutes. So
Sure.
Tell us what you do.
One of the main tools that a trichologist uses is called a trichoscope. It's a microscope that's handheld, made to be able to look at the scalp and the hair. It has different magnifications, so you can see 60 time or even 150 or 700 time magnification, which is good for seeing a general perspective of the scalp. It will show you inflammation or miniaturization, flaking, plaque, anything like that, up to the health of the cuticle.
Interesting. Can you describe miniaturization? I bet a lot of people in the audience don't know what that means.
Most people think of hereditary hair loss when they think of miniaturization. Basically, miniaturization is when the hair follicle itself is compromised and starts shrinking, and it actually causes the follicle to lift up to the surface of the scalp itself, so it's not growing as deeply, and then it shrinks, so the hair becomes smaller and smaller and smaller with every hair cycle.
Okay, all right. So with respect to when you assess the scalp with your tools, how often do you assess for changes? Because I know that the hair grows in stages, and so how often do you look at the scalp again to see if there's progress when you're working with someone?
Depending on the client and what their issues are, we may look, if they have scalp problems, it might be every month, because we can see over a few week time if their home regime or the treatments we're offering are actually improving their scalp. If they have hair loss problems, then generally you want to come in about every 3 months, so you can complete a whole hair cycle and see if there's any changes and new growth at that point.
Right. So there's a difference between scalp and hair growth. So you're looking at both of those, and that makes a lot of sense. Okay. And what do you think is the biggest risk factor of somebody who's struggling with hair loss, of not seeing a trichologist? Why should people be more at your doorstep?
Sure. The sooner somebody sees a trichologist, if they have hair loss problems that maybe started fairly suddenly, then the better the chance of regrowth and correcting the problem. The longer they wait, There may be some hairs that decide that they can't grow any longer. And if it's a scarring alopecia rather than just something that's self-correctable, then you really don't want to let that go on. You want to have proper treatment so that you can stop the progression and actually grow that hair back.
Nice. That sounds fantastic. So sometimes I hear this from my clients. They'll say, well, everybody in my family loses their hair. It's just inevitable that I'm going to lose my hair. What do you say to somebody who's sort of resigned to that?
That is such a common myth, too. What I tell somebody is that if diabetes is in your family, do you just give into it, or do you actually take action?
Right.
Same thing with hair loss. Hair loss might be in your family, but that just means that you're predisposed to it. Doesn't mean that you can't strengthen the hair follicle, correct some underlying issues, and actually prevent it from triggering. It requires an actual trigger before it's activated, and that could be an illness, it could be stress, even nutrient deficiencies. But you can take action and actually slow it down.
Okay. Okay, great. What do you think is the biggest myth about hair loss or hair regrowth? Like the biggest misunderstanding that the common public has about regrowth?
Apart from I have hereditary hair loss and I can't do anything about it, which we just discussed, I think the next one would be I should not wash my hair too frequently.
Yeah, because you think it's going to dry our hair out.
There's a lot of people out there now who are going a week or even 2 weeks without shampooing, and they are doing some major damage to their scalp, which will cause inflammation and then lead to hair loss.
Ah, interesting. That's good to know. Okay, so as far as topicals, because you read about things like minoxidil or finasteride, what topicals or alternative treatments are available that you make use of? Not talking about products per se, but what substances kind of provide nutrients to the body in a way that's not pharmaceutical?
Right. There are a lot of topicals out there now that are called hair growth serums, non-medicated. They may have saw palmetto in them or red clover. They can have niacin, B vitamins. They all have research. The ingredients themselves may have research showing potential benefits to growing hair, stimulating hair growth. It can definitely be complementary and helpful. It may not replace a medication completely, but definitely complementary. Some people only need the scalp stimulation, other people need more. So it's not for everybody, but if you can, it definitely adds to the treatment.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. It's not one or the other. So
No.
That's good to know. So are there any activities of normal daily living that you see that contribute to hair loss, like swimming in chlorinated pools or styling and cleansing products or hairstyles or hair dyes? Do you see any of these issues as being a major contributor to people that you've worked with?
There are definitely things that people do in their everyday lives that can be potential causes for hair loss.
Right.
One of which is using dry shampoo. People don't think about it. They use it, then they go to the gym, they use it again, then they go and they work or they sweat and things attach to that hair shampoo. And if you're not washing your hair frequently and you have that on there, I've had people come in with hair loss only because of using that product. You can also have tight hairstyles that can cause traction alopecia. You can, there's many different things in our lifestyle. Contact dermatitis from color, hair color, or products that have common allergens. The inflammation on your scalp from that can eventually lead to hair loss as well.
Wow, that's good to know. Okay. And so in your experience, what kind of time frames do you see with respect to hair follicles producing new growth? I realize that it's unique to each person and there's no crystal ball, but is there just a general ballpark of if somebody cleans up their lifestyle and diet and topicals, what kind of a time frame do you see regrowth in typically?
That is definitely a hard one to say because there are so many factors. depending on if the person does the treatments properly, if they follow through on trying to correct and change their lifestyles and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not a scarring alopecia, if it's telogen effluvium from nutrient deficiencies or an illness or something of the sort, stress, if they get all those underlying factors corrected, then generally speaking, you can get maybe new hair growth 3 months at earliest to 6 months.
Yeah.
But it can take up to a year for things to self-correct. The more factors there are, the longer it can take.
Okay, all right, good to know. And that is all the questions I have for you. Do you have any questions for me?
As an acupuncturist, and you specialize in microneedling for hair loss as well, what technique do you offer that can benefit the hair growth? We know through research that microneedling can actually stimulate stem cells of our own up to the surface and repair the hair.
Yep.
I believe that it definitely can be useful, but there are many people out there doing microneedling.
Right.
And I think that you have a technique maybe that can be a little different and beneficial for people.
Yeah, so with respect to microneedling, there's a ton of clinical research out there that shows that microneedling on the scalp helps all types of hair loss. And so a part of the technique, if you will, is also looking at other lifestyle factors. Are they is someone can always being exposed to environmental issues? Or have they had a major shock in their life that has contributed to hair falling out? So I also look at those things. Acupuncture always looks at the person as a whole and the whole system and the patterns that your system has as you progress through life. And then also I do use purified Chinese topical herbs on the scalp after I do microneedling and send people home with these purified serums that they can apply once the microneedling is completed. And what the studies also show about microneedling is even though we're using tiny little needles to make conduits in the skin, it does not cause scarring. It doesn't cause scarring like a trauma would cause scarring. And so that's a great benefit. And while those conduits are still open, it's an ideal time to use the serum so that it drops past into the dermis and feeds the hair follicle. So that's how I.
And what if someone was very sensitive? Because I know I've had clients come in saying, it was so painful.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Everybody is quite different in that instance. Some people have very sensitive central nervous systems. I do carry numbing cream, and I offer that to whomever would like it. Most of my clients don't require it, but some do. And so if that's the case, I apply that. It stays in place for 10 or 20 minutes, and then I wash it out and then do the treatment. So that's an option for whoever needs it. Nobody's coming in to be tortured. That's not my job. So
sounds good.
Yeah. Any other questions that you have?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered it all.
Awesome. Thank you, Martine. Thank you for viewing. If anybody has questions, feel free to message us and ask any questions that you may like, and we are very happy to address them. And we wish you well in your hair regrowth journey.
And we will include our contact information after this message.